Creating a dataset is done by clicking the Create a New Dataset button right here. Now, if this is the first dataset you've created for your company, you'll click the New Company button here, and you'll enter the name of your company in the text box. If you've already created several datasets for your company, you can just select your company name from the existing list of companies here. I'll be creating for a new company. I'll call that company Tutorial Company. Now you need to enter a unique name for the dataset. What that means is you can't enter two datasets with the same name in one company. Otherwise, you couldn't tell them apart when you go to open the dataset. I'll call this dataset Tutorial Dataset. Now the effective date and activity period for your dataset need to be selected. Now these are the dates that will be shown on the reports and narratives produced for this dataset. The effective date is the first day on which the plan is in effect. If your company has a fiscal or planning cycle that is a calendar year, this will be January 1st. For example, if the data that I will be importing into this dataset is my workforce at the end of the year 2014, and all the activities that took place during 2014, then my plan will be effective starting on January 1st, 2015. So that would be the date that I would select here. So I'll go to January 1st, 2015. That's my effective date. And my activity period then would be all of 2014. That would be January 1st through December 31st. You can also directly enter in your dates here. So I'll put in 1/1/2014 and 12/31/2014. Oops, 2014. Now if you want to add some additional notes or information about the dataset, those can be entered here. I'll make a note that this dataset is for the tutorial. Now, notes are helpful if you have multiple datasets being used by multiple users. The notes can be helpful for distinguishing similar datasets. And finally, you need to enter a password for the dataset and confirm that password. Anyone needing to access the dataset will enter this password. And click Create. And the dataset is now created, and it's the currently open dataset. You can see the currently open dataset down here in the lower left corner. Now, opening datasets is really similar to creating them, except that you don't have to enter the information about the dataset. You just select it from the list. For instance, if I'd come into DVAAPBase and I needed to open a dataset, just click Open a different dataset or Open Last Used Dataset. And that brings up the dialog to open a dataset. You can select the company. In this case, the company that I created was Tutorial Company. And then this second list will show all of the datasets that belong to the company that I have called Tutorial Company. In this case, I just have one dataset, so I'll select that. And then I enter the password that was created for the dataset. And click Open. And the dataset is now the currently open dataset. On occasion, you'll want to make a copy of a dataset. That could be to make a backup of the dataset, or if you want to make serious changes to the data, but you don't want to affect your main dataset. So you copy a dataset just by clicking the copy button here. What you're doing is you're making a complete copy of all the data and settings in the current dataset, and you're giving that dataset a new name. As I mentioned before, every dataset in a company has to have a unique name. So by default, the dataset is given a name of the original dataset name plus copy put at the end. I'll just leave that as it is. And you can change the activity period and effective date in the dataset. You can also change the notes for the copy. Of course, you have to have a password for every dataset. So I'll be entering the same password that I used on the original dataset. And I'll click Copy to copy that dataset. So now it tells me that I've made a copy of the dataset, and now that is the currently open dataset. You can see down in the lower left corner, the copy is the dataset that I now have open. Now, if you have a data set that you no longer need, for example, it's an old backup or perhaps a copy that you just don't need to use anymore, you can use the delete button here to actually delete the dataset. So I currently have the tutorial dataset copy open. If I no longer need that dataset, I click the delete button. It confirms that you are permanently deleting this dataset and it cannot be undone. So really make sure that you no longer need that dataset before you perform this. I click yes, and it confirms that the tutorial dataset copy has been deleted. Now when that's done, you'll notice there's no dataset open. You don't see a dataset name here in the lower left corner, so you would need to open a new dataset at this point.